When shoe lovers see this buckle, they immediately know it's Roger Vivier. This shoe is loved by celebrities for its modern and contemporary design, but did you actually know that this shoe has a very long history? Because it already came to fame in the 1960s when none other than Catherine Deneuve was looking for a more comfortable shoe when she was filming Belle du Jour. And then she opted for Roger Vivier's design. A legend was born, and until today the shoe is called Belle Vivier to pay tribute to Catherine Deneuve's movie. So who is this man behind the shoe Roger Vivier? And you will be surprised, he actually worked for one of the most famous designers ever before starting his own brand. Before I start, I need to do the housekeeping here. This is a non-sponsored video. I'm just sharing my personal opinion and my research here. Everything I say is alleged and for entertainment purposes only. Roger Vivier was born in Paris in 1907. His father managed prestigious restaurants, but unfortunately Roger Vivier lost his parents very early on and then was raised by his maternal aunt. Roger Vivier actually enrolled to study sculpture at the École des Beaux-Arts, but very soon a friend approached him. This friend owned a shoe factory and he asked him if he wanted to design shoes for him. And immediately the choice was very clear for Roger Vivier. He quit studying and joined his friend. And then the ball started rolling, sometimes also due to coincidences who he met. For example, he met the Austrian costume designer Paul Scheltenhammer, and he started to design shoes for Marianne Oswald and her recitals of Jean Cocteau poems, and he even designed for Josephine Baker. Very often his designs were inspired by places in Paris, for example the Moulin Rouge. In the 1930s, he opened his own atelier in the Rue Royale, and architecture-wise or design-wise, it's quite interesting because this whole atelier was in all white. The only exception was the carpet floors and some details like the chairs from the times of Napoleon III. So we can clearly see that he was very much still influenced by the arts. There was a reason why he initially wanted to become a sculptor. He became very popular with French clients, but also with Americans. And he soon also caught the attention of Elsa Schiaparelli, who was very famous already at the time. After the war, he worked for Delmans, an American shoe company. A major breakthrough for Roger Vivier was when he designed the shoes for the coronation of Elizabeth II in 1953. And we have to put this into context here because he was a French designer supplying the shoes for the British Queen. Usually the British court, until today, they prefer local designers. So this was a major thing at the time. And then, of course, these shoes were very, very special because they were gilded leather sandals and they even had rubies, and even the design broke court conventions. And in 1953, something else really major happened for Roger Vivier because he entered into a contract with Christian Dior. This was really big. It was also a bit problematic because Roger Vivier actually had an exclusive contract with Delmans, but he made it work. And he then started to design for the Dior customers. And again, we have to put this in the context of the time. At the time, in the 1950s, it was very common for those who could afford it to always have the matching shoe for the outfit. This was before the major inventions of, for example, Chanel's two-tone shoe, which could be combined with many dresses or many outfits. This was still the time where it was needed to have one dedicated pair of shoes with a particular outfit. And it was very special because it was the only time when Christian Dior actually allowed another designer to design and also leave the label, so you can see that on the shoes. And in 1955, Delman actually shut down their operations in France, but Roger Vivier kept designing for Christian Dior. Today, when people think about Roger Vivier, they immediately think of the buckle. A lot of people actually don't know that he had a very big impact on the development of the heels as well. At the time when Roger Vivier started out, it was actually common to have a block heel because it was quite difficult to support the weight of the body with a thinner heel. But then in the 1950s, new metal alloys made it possible to make this heel thinner. It could still support the weight, and Roger Vivier was very much involved in the development. Whether he is now the only inventor or if this was something that multiple designers were working on and then some people came out with it, we can discuss this. I think this is a formality, but he did have a big impact. He called his stiletto aiguille, and it was also perfect for Christian Dior's models because they had to have a certain poise, they had to have a certain way how they walked, and this stiletto heel that didn't break allowed them to move according to the ideas of Dior. But Roger Vivier did not stop at the stiletto heel per se. In 1955 he created the boule heel, which, according to the name, boule means ball in French, and it was this rhinestone-covered ball at the end of the heels. When I look at this design now, also contemporary interpretations come to mind. For example, Jonathan Anderson's tennis heel for Loewe, whether we like it or not, but I find it interesting. I find this initial design by Roger Vivier very interesting. And another person who also found it interesting and liked it very much was Marlene Dietrich. And until today, this shoe is very much linked to the actress. Shortly after that, in 1959, Roger Vivier designed the choc heel, and then in 1963, the virgule. Virgule in French means comma, and this is exactly how this heel looks like. And only in that year did Roger Vivier start his own store. So if we think about it, it took him actually some time to start his own label. And in today's terms, I find this interesting because very often we think about overnight successes. And mind you, Roger Vivier at the time was already 56 years old. So I do think this is yet another proof that you're never too old to reinvent yourself, to change your career and follow your passion also. 1965 was very important for Roger Vivier. It kind of laid this groundwork for the international fame that lasts until today. Because first of all, he designed for his spring-summer collection, 1965-1966, and the press called it as bold as an Amazon by day and as feline as a cat by night. So obviously people really liked it. And then he also designed for Yves Saint Laurent's Mondrian collection. And he designed a shoe with a 3-centimeter block heel, but this is actually not the important thing. Now we move to the buckle because it had a square chrome buckle at the vamp. And for me, as a non-native speaker of English, vamp is quite interesting. When I saw this for all non-native speakers here, this is the top part of the shoe. This is exactly where the buckle is placed. And very soon there would be waiting lines for this shoe. At first, it was actually called the Pilgrim buckle. Some people even use this today because this was a reference to the American Puritans in the 17th century who wore buckled shoes. But today we know it under a different name, under Belle Vivier. And let me tell you where this name is coming from. In 1967, Catherine Deneuve was filming Belle du Jour, and she was looking for a shoe that was not too high. She wanted a comfortable shoe, and then she spontaneously chose Roger Vivier's buckle design. And this helped to create this myth of this middle class or upper middle class woman in Paris who is also dressed impeccably no matter her mood, no matter the situations that she's facing in life. And because of this, Roger Vivier then named the shoe Belle Vivier to pay tribute to Catherine Deneuve and the movie. Already in the 1980s, the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris paid tribute to Roger Vivier with a major retrospective. He passed away in 1998. So what happened after he passed away? In the early 2000s, the Diego de la Valle family bought the brand. Diego de la Valle, this may ring a bell, this is the family who owns Tod's, and exactly that company then bought Roger Vivier in 2015. Bruno Frisoni became creative director of the brand in 2003. He stayed with the brand for 15 years, and in 2018, Gerardo Feloni took over, and since then he has been reinterpreting the archival designs. The buckle itself is still very much the core part of the Roger Vivier brand, even though the heels are also still there, but most people think about the buckles because when you walk into a Roger Vivier boutique, this is the first thing that you will notice. And they also came up with different designs of exactly that buckle. In 2016, they launched a version of this buckle called the Flower Strass buckle. I don't know about you, but when I look at it, it reminds me a bit of the Hang Easy buckle by Manolo Blahnik. I talked about this in my other video where I said Manolo Blahnik was inspired by French aristocracy and also upper class women. And this shoe came out a bit earlier than this Roger Vivier design, so maybe we can argue if they were inspired by it. I don't know what you think, let me know in the comments below. And needless to say, also Roger Vivier entered the sneaker game, so we have the buckle now on sneakers since 2018. The buckle is not only on the shoes. In 2020, they also launched jewelry inspired by the Roger Vivier buckle. And since 2021, it's also on bags. There's the Vive Choc bag, which also pays tribute to the shoe, or the Choc heel. So we can clearly see that this buckle until today is very important for the Roger Vivier brand. And now I would like to know from you, what do you think about Roger Vivier shoes? Do you own them? Do you find them comfortable? Let us know in the comments below.